A court ruling came down that will allow convicted felons to vote in the upcoming presidential election as long as they're not in prison. Western Mass News reporter Wesley Days getting answers on what voting rights incarcerated men and women have here in the Bay State.
We try to make it as easy as possible.
Ballots behind bars. What can you do and what's out of the picture?
If you're incarcerated in Massachusetts, as long as you are not serving a sentence for a felony conviction, you are allowed to vote.
Well, Western Mass News is getting answers from Rob Rizzuto. He's a spokesperson with the Hampden County Sheriff's Office.
Here at our facilities in Hampden County, every eligible voter is given the opportunity to, request an absentee ballot. And we do our best to educate them on the various ballot initiatives when it comes to a state election.
It doesn't stop there. Rizzuto highlights problems with prisoners and their lack of enthusiasm at the polls.
So historically, the voting rates for incarcerated people are pretty low, especially compared to the general public. And I think a lot of that reflects the general feeling amongst those who happen to be incarcerated that they already feel disenfranchised by a system, so they don't find value in engaging it.
For those with felonies,
every state is different when it comes to voting rights for someone with a felony conviction.
So convicted felons in Massachusetts can't vote while inside the prison, but can when they're out. Some in other states can't say the same.
In other states, you'll find sometimes there is a temporary a temporary ban on that person voting. It can be 6 months, a year, or 2 years even. And sometimes it's a permanent ban.
And that was